Muslim apologists, and indeed many skeptics, will state, you assume that the singular Injil, the Gospel, mentioned in the Qur'an is the four Gospels you have today. The Qur'an speaks of one book given to Jesus. You have four. You must prove your positive claim. This sounds like a powerful challenge. It appears to place the entire burden of proof upon the Christian, to bridge the gap between a singular Injil and a plural Gospels. But this challenge, while rhetorically effective, is built upon a profound category error. It confuses the message with the medium. It ignores history, linguistics, and the very textual evidence it claims to champion. In this analysis, we will not be using dogma. We will be using academic history and analytic logic. And I will demonstrate not one but two things. First, that the one Injil and the four Gospels are a necessary unity understood by the earliest church. And second, that the true burden of proof and the catastrophic logical failure lies not with the Christian, but with the apologist who makes this challenge. This is Kyrios Philosophy. The entire objection hinges on the word Injil. Injil is the Arabic term derived from the Greek euangelion, and euangelion does not mean a bound book. It means the good news. It is a proclamation, a message, a kerygma. When the Apostle Paul speaks of the gospel, he is not referring to a physical book, he is referring to the content of his proclamation, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. This one gospel, this singular message, is the ontological reality. The four books we possess are four narratives of that one proclamation. We know this from the titles themselves. The ancient manuscripts do not say the Gospel of Matthew. They say the Gospel according to Matthew, the Gospel according to Mark. This kata, according to formula, is critical. It implies one singular gospel, the gospel of Jesus Christ, told from four distinct, authorized perspectives. As the renowned historian Martin Hengel demonstrates in his definitive work, The Four Gospels and the One Gospel of Jesus Christ, this uniform, fourfold collection was recognized by the Church as early as the 2nd century. The gospel is the one reality. The Gospels are its fourfold attestation. Now we move from textual analysis to historical necessity. The Muslim apologists insist that the Qur'an, revealed in the 7th century, affirms a singular, lost Injil, and not the fourfold collection. Let us apply Socratic logic. We must ask a simple historical question. In the 7th century, when the Qur'an was being revealed, what Injil did the Christians actually possess? What gospel was being read in the churches of Syria, Egypt, Palestine, and Arabia? The historical answer is irrefutable. It is not ambiguous. By the 7th century, the only Injil known to any orthodox, heretical, or peripheral Christian group was the four gospel collection: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This was the only gospel in existence. There is zero manuscript evidence, zero patristic citation, and zero archaeological evidence for the existence of any other book called the Injil that was in the hands of the 7th century people of the book. This creates a severe logical dilemma for the apologists. You are faced with two and only two possibilities. Possibility A: the Quran was confirming the only Injil that actually existed in the 7th century, the book that was actually in the hands of the Christians. If this is true, then the Quran is referring to and confirming the four gospel collection. The case is closed. Or, possibility B, the Quran was confirming a purely hypothetical book, a ghost, a book that had vanished from the earth hundreds of years prior, leaving behind not one shred of evidence. If this is true, the Quran's confirmation is meaningless. It confirms a non-entity. It affirms a phantom. Which is the more rational conclusion? That the Quran was affirming the book of history or the book of imagination? At this point, the apologists, realizing that history has cornered them, that the only Injil available in the 7th century was the fourfold gospel, will deploy their final escape. They will say, but you misunderstand the nature of the confirmation. They will argue that the Quran is not just a confirmer but also a criterion or overseer, muhaimin, as stated in Surah 548. The argument is this: the Quran acts as a filter. It confirms the parts of the four Gospels that align with its own message and implicitly rejects the parts that contradict it as corruption. This sounds sophisticated, but it is a complete catastrophic logical failure. It is the fallacy of begging the question. Let us analyze this logically. 1. The Quran's 7th century claim to authority, its truth test, was predicated on its ability to confirm the scriptures that came before it. This is the Musaddiqan test. It was an appeal to an external, pre-existing standard, the Injil in the hands of the Al-Kitab. 2. We apply this test. We compare the Quran to that 7th century external standard, the four Gospels. We find fundamental contradictions in core, essential doctrines. 3. The logical conclusion is that the Quran fails its own Musaddiqan test. It does not confirm the historical Injil. 4. Now, watch the escape. The apologists, seeing the test fail, changes the test. They invoke muhaimin. They say the Quran is not tested by the Injil is filtered by the Quran. Do you see the circularity? The apologists are assuming the Quran is true in order to prove that the Quran is true. You cannot presuppose the Quran's authority as a filter to validate the very test, the confirmation, that was meant to establish its authority in the first place. This reduces the Quran's claim to this meaningless tautology. The Quran confirms everything in the Injil that the Quran confirms. So we are left with a final, inescapable dilemma. If it confirms the actual, historical 7th century Injil, the four Gospels, then it confirms the Trinity, the Sonship, and the Crucifixion. In this case, Islamic theology collapses. If it filters the Injil, it fails its own historical test, Musaddiqan. It requires you to assume its truth before you can test it, which is circular reasoning. In this case, the Quran's claim to external validation collapses. So we return to the beginning, but with the fog of rhetoric cleared. The challenge was, prove the singular Injil is the four Gospels. The answer is, history proves it. The counter-challenge was, the Injil is corrupt, and the Quran is the muhaimin, filter. The answer is, that is a circular argument that collapses under its own logical incoherence. This leaves the original challenge, the burden of proof, standing unanswered but now reversed. The positive claim is not held by the Christian. The Christian holds the historical record. The positive claim, the claim that requires extraordinary proof for which zero evidence has ever been provided, is the assertion that an alternate, singular, pure Injil ever existed in the first place, only to vanish from history without a trace. So I will state the challenge one final time. If you insist that the Injil of the Quran is not the four Gospels, present your positive claim. Show me the 7th century, 5th century, or 3rd century historical evidence for this other book. Show me the pre-Islamic manuscript. Show me the church father who quotes from it. If you cannot, then your objection is an escape from history. This is Kyrios Philosophy.